Iowa's Republican senators split on what could be a series of D.C. moves to create a federal guarantee for same-sex marriage. Joni Ernst supported it. Chuck Grassley said it's unnecessary since 50 states already provide that guarantee. Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson sided with Grassley on this. Now, Hutchinson stopped by here as he looks at the 2024 presidential run. He told me he did watch Donald Trump's announcement for that third presidential campaign the other day.
Actually, I did. I was going through airports, but it worked out that I was actually able to watch the announcement of former President Donald Trump.
You and former President Mike Pence have both said that your party will have a better choice than Donald Trump. How would you be that better choice?
Well, we're looking at exactly what the future would hold, and I do believe that there should be options for the Republican voters and the American people when it comes to 2024. And so whether Trump was in there or not as a candidate, I've made it clear for months that I'm considering a race for the president in 2024. And so I knew that that was a possibility. Last night he confirmed that he was going to be a candidate, and he's announced now. And I look at that and I listen to his words, and first of all, he's very right in what he said, that Biden's policies are taking America in the wrong direction, from energy to border security to the lack of strength in our military preparedness and other issues. So he was right on that point. He's right that he did a lot of good things while he was president, but whenever you look at the opportunity to win, the darkness of that message and the negativity of it, really indicates to me that if we're going to win in 2024, there should be options on the Republican side.
You had told the Washington Post before the election that you expected your party to have a good election. That red wave nationally didn't happen. It did happen in our state. Was Trump part of the reason? Was it his candidates, if you will, that cost that wave, his presence?
Well, candidates always make a difference. And by the way, congratulations in Iowa, Governor Reynolds and her reelection by a huge margin, but also Brenna Bird, as well as your treasurer candidate, Robbie Smith. Incredible results there. Zach Nunn winning. Iowa really had a good election from a Republican standpoint.
You paid attention to the candidates.
Well, they're good candidates, and that's the reason that they won. They're good candidates, had a unified party, and they focused on the future and problem solving. And you look at the races that we lost across the country, it's generally somebody that was arguing about the last election and the past and airing grievances, and the American public said, no, let's go a different direction. Let's talk about the future. There's important issues. And so this election, I think it's really important to look at the midterm elections and recognize that it was not Republican ideas that were rejected. It was simply particular candidates and what they were expressing, and the candidates that could not win independents in November lost. And that's the message to me. We have to nominate candidates through the primary process, through the caucus process, of being able to attract independents and can win in November. And that's the lesson from the midterm election.
When you look at those polls, there is a chunk, whether they're Trump supporters primarily, but who now 2 years later still denying the election results. Can you win those folks over?
Can I win them over? And the answer is yes. I believe that is the case. And some you will not, because they're fixated on the past and they're not going to recognize any other argument or facts. But by and large, people had information, they made decisions on it, but you've got to look to the future. And I think they want candidates that are saying America is a great land, our democracy is strong, and that is another lesson of the midterm election, is that while all the pundits, and myself included, believed that there was going to be a red wave, there wasn't, because the people spoke, they participated in, and so it really reflected the strength of our democracy in the last election, even though it didn't turn out exactly how I wanted it to do. And so we have a great nation, and we want candidates to reflect that, our leaders to reflect that. Sure, we've got problems reflected by this administration, but that's what elections are about and ideas are about. I held an ideas conference this year, and it was about, let's focus on what are the problems we need to solve in the future. Let's bring the great thinkers together, the thought leaders, and talk through these things and listen to each other from a conservative standpoint. And to me, that's exciting, and that's what America wants.
Okay, you talked about ideas there. I remember years ago talking to our former governor, Tom Vilsack. He ran for president for a while. And afterwards, and he kind of did this in a self-deprecating way, but was saying at the end of the day, he kind of lacked the pizzazz or whatever that people were looking for nationally. As we look ahead to 2024, obviously Trump's got his style, Ron DeSantis has a style. With all due respect, are you going to come across too vanilla for these folks who want the Twitter little sound bites that can go viral, the flame throwing, all that kind of stuff? Like, does the base want that?
Well, the first thing, it sounds to me like you're implying I don't have pizzazz.
I would not do that, and I'm sure your family would disagree, so I'm not saying that. I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, it's a fair point and a fair question. And, you know, when I look at my record in Arkansas of lowering taxes, of shrinking the size of our state employment to save money, to be able to create 125,000 jobs, to address the issues of foster care in our state, to advance computer science education. I think those carry a lot of pizzazz. I think that's what voters are looking for, which is people who can solve problems and meet the needs of the kitchen table. And these are serious times whenever you look at rising cost of energy, gas prices, food prices. This causes our families to struggle. And so it takes some serious thinking. It takes some serious people to address those. When you look at the challenges abroad with the threats from China, primarily economically, but also in reference to Taiwan, when you look at Ukraine struggling, these are serious issues of peace and the Treasury of the United States as well. So a lot's at stake. And so I think you can have a lot of fun in a campaign. I think that you can have some pizzazz, but at the end of the day, let's solve these problems and let's showcase how great America is and how great the American strength of our people are.
Okay, let's use that pizzazz in your ideas. What do you do with the border? That has received heightened attention. You have so many people trying to come across right now, and it's been this way the last year or 2 years. But we've had a lot of people in this studio over the years, and Republican, Democrat, almost everybody always talks about it, but at the end of the day, not a heck of a lot gets done. Trump built part of the wall, so that at least got things going there. Now he claims it's finished, which it's not, but that was a tangible thing, right? So what is something tangible you think you could accomplish from the White House that folks before you have not?
In reference to border security, first of all, I understand the problem. Whenever I was in the George W. Bush administration, I was Undersecretary at Homeland Security. I had responsibility for the border. Let me assure you, we didn't do it perfectly, but I understand the challenges that are there. We had about 1 million apprehensions a year. Under the Biden administration, it's gone up to over 2 million apprehensions, and that doesn't count the gotaways. And so it's a serious problem with the fentanyl seizures that are being made at the border and those that get through and how it impacts our families right here in Iowa. These are problems that we have to address. And I'd emphasize that the latest fentanyl seizure was not coming across between the ports of entry, but it was at the port of entry. And so we've got to make sure that our border is protected, not just in the open spaces, but also the cargo that comes through. We've just got a huge challenge there. What you do about it is, first of all, you got to have the cooperation of Mexico if we're going to go after the cartels. We've got to somehow enlist them. When I was head of the DEA, We went after the cartels down in Mexico. I was there. We got the cartel that had the Ariana Felix brothers leading it, the Tijuana cartel. There's been others that replace it, but we have to be able to have a strategy that diminishes their influence in bringing the fentanyl across, but the human smuggling as well. We have to be able to change the law in reference to our asylum system, where they're released into the United States. We've got to put the resources there that we can quickly process those. Absolutely, they have a right to, not a right, but we have a nation that accepts those that are seeking refuge in the United States. But we want to be able to measure that and making sure that we're handling that right. We've got to have decisions. We have to send them back to Mexico if they don't qualify for that. So a number of things that we have to do, and it takes a strategy and a commitment. Most importantly, you've got to show strength to those in Latin America and other places, and now they're coming from all over the globe, that we're not going to have an open border and that we're going to follow the rule of law when it comes to our border system.
How he would win over Trump supporters next.